Hello and welcome once again to the Valuer podcast. Now, this is episode 2. By now, you must be able to understand the key elements of this podcast and why it's necessary for all the viewers to take time to listen and watch because we are learning. I am personally learning. And today, like any other episode, we have a special guest. I'm your host, Damiano Chilekwa, aka Mwanamfumu. Who's my guest today? My guest is Mr. Christopher Mulenga. Who is this man? He has a bachelor's in land economy at from CBU, master's in land management and land tenure, Technical University Munich, which is German. Worked for Knight Frank as team leader, valuations from 2008 to 2013. Tetra Tech, land administration and field coordinator from 2015 to 2017. Partner Platinum from 2017, which he actually is working with up to date. And also part-time lecturer, Valuation and Real Estate, University of Lusaka. He's also a member of Network of Excellence on Land Governance in Africa, vice chairperson, Southern Africa, chapter of African Real Estate Society, president, Zambia Institute of Valuation Surveyors, and it's no other than Mr. Christopher Mulenga. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Mulenga.
Thank you so much for according me this wonderful opportunity. I'm so glad that I'm here.
It's good to have you. We are thrilled because, like I introduced, this podcast is mainly about learning and understanding what the importance is of these, valuation laws and valuers, and just to get to know who these people are. But obviously, first things first, we want to know ZIVS or ZIVS, which is the Zambia Institute of Valuation Surveyors. What is this all about?
Okay, thank you so much for that question that you've asked. Zambia Institute of Valuation Surveyors is a corporate body enacted under an Act of Parliament, number 9 of 2023 of the laws of Zambia. Its main purpose is to regulate and register the practice of valuation surveyors in Zambia. Now, when you talk about valuation surveying, it's a composition of about 4 different professionals or skilled people. We have valuers, people that value property for various purposes. That's land and buildings, asset, plant and machinery, and they also perform asset coding. Then we also have property managers, people that manage properties. We also have facilities managers, as well as those performing some land administration services. Now on land administration, I'll put a disclaimer because land administration is very broad. But we have some members that perform some functions to do with land administration, most of them working for the public institutions like the government, like Ministry of Lands, as well as other ministries within our country.
Okay, nice. So obviously, most of us, me personally, and of course maybe the viewers out there, may have heard about this maybe for the first time on the 16th of December, if I am correct, when it was, I think, your institution, or is it an association, issued a statement, and for the first time to the public. And obviously, when something new comes, there's a lot of, others wanting to know more about it and to just understand why this. So obviously, you've explained the institution itself and how it was established. But in terms of the lay person out there who's a property owner or any person that is interested in knowing about this, in a layman's language, what duties will the Zambia Institution of Valuation and Surveyors, play? What role will it play in making sure that they iron out whatever differences, whatever issues that might be on the ground in a layman's language?
In a layman's language, what I would say is that one of our objectives as an institute is of course, to promote the valuation surveying profession. In promoting the valuation surveying profession is in twofold. We are protecting the interest of our members that are affiliated to the institute.
Yes.
We are also protecting the interest of the general public, because that's the reason why this institute was established, is to protect the interest of the members of the public. And there are many areas in which we protect the members, the interests of the members of the general public, like you have alluded to that statement that was made. But of course, as we continue in the interview, I'll be able to highlight some of those issues.
So in terms of how the field of play has been before this institution, what do you think the difference would be in terms of impact? But obviously, you tell us on how it has been before this institution came into play, and what the impact would be now. How easy will things be, and anything regarding those issues?
Okay, first we would look at the challenges that led to the repeal of the previous act where we operated under. We used to operate under the Valuation Surveyors Act, Cap 207 of the Laws of Zambia 1976. Now that act had its own shortcomings. One of the shortcomings was that it used to regulate and register the practice of valuers, or I would say valuers per se. And in that case, a lot of members that were holding requisite qualifications in land management or land economy, real estate or property studies were left out, especially those who were pursuing the field of property management, because it didn't cover so much on property. So a valuer was just known as a valuer.
Yes.
Now with the coming in of the act, it has broadened those areas in terms of establishing different pathways under which someone can be registered under the institute. So if I'm strong in property management, I don't need to be subjected to valuation. If I'm strong in facilities management, I don't need to be subjected to property management per se, because I need to choose the field that I'm supposed to practice in. Then the other inherent challenge was that we used to operate under the Surveyors Institute of Zambia. Now, Surveyors Institute of Zambia was a composition of three different professionals. There were quantity surveyors, land surveyors, as well as valuation surveyors. Now, in order to disseminate the information or be able to market our profession adequately, it proved a challenge, because when you go for a meeting, you are introducing yourself as Surveyors Institute of Zambia, yes. Which is broad. Now, in that case, you now start breaking it down. Now, this time around, we have valuation surveyors. So as valuation surveyors, everyone knows that these are valuation surveyors, and we're able to articulate issues on valuation in a manner that is prescribed, or in a manner that is befitting, such that even a lay person would be able to understand what we're talking about.
So to a large extent, you're almost like the voice for the surveyors, and just, almost like pronouncing them more, because to be honest, I think I've mentioned it before on other platforms, that if you heard about a surveyor, some days back or years back, you just think of those people that move with tapes, and sometimes on the roads, and they put their cameras and the like. But this institution looks like it becomes a voice to, pronounce or protect the works that these people are doing, the surveyors are doing. But obviously, you being the president, in your capacity as the president, what are your responsibilities, and how do you intend to make sure that this institution comes to stay? Because obviously, in many other fields, we may have heard of one or two institutions coming, on the field of play, but before we know it, they are gone. So what's your responsibility, and how do you wish to make this thing come to stay?
Thank you so much. So before I attempt to answer that question on my roles or responsibilities that I have, I just wanted to highlight on surveying. When you talk about surveying, it's a composition of three professions. We've got land surveyors, we've got valuation surveyors who are ourselves. We also have got quantity surveyors. And each of these type of surveyors, they play a different
Role.
So for us, it's purely valuation surveying, which is, of course, the valuation of assets, like I mentioned, land and buildings, and also plant and machinery. And we also do property management, facilities management, and also parts, like I said, part of the land administration services. That's the role that we play, which is totally different from the quantity surveyors. The quantity surveyors play a different role, as well as the land surveyors. They play a different role in the surveying.
But are they also, do we have some of those still under, as members under this? Or
No.
they totally have a separate institution?
No, they have a separate institution. Like for the quantity surveyors, just last week, the minister was announcing through the acting permanent secretary the enactment of the Quantity Surveyors Act. So that has come in place. We are waiting maybe the land surveyors, because what happened is we came from the Surveyors Institute of Zambia. So now with Surveyors Institute of Zambia, the quantity surveyors have formed their own institute. The valuation surveyors have formed their own institute. So the only members remaining there are land surveyors, so to say, at the moment. Now, coming back to my responsibilities. The responsibilities of a president is basically to preside over council and also over the AGM. So with council, we've got a composition of council members. Like in our institute, we have the vice president north. We have two vice presidents, the vice president north, vice president south. We also have 4 committee members. And apart from that, according to the composition, we're supposed to have an immediate past president. So if someone is an immediate past president, automatically they transition into the next council that comes on. So apart from being able to preside over these issues, as a president, in case we go for an AGM or even in a council meeting and we are deliberating on certain issues and then we can't agree, out of the 8 of us, if we have, let's say, we've got 4-4, I have a deliberate vote as a president to settle the matter. So that's one of my responsibilities. Then the other one is, of course, to represent the institute, both nationally, at national level, as well as at international level. And this has been happening over time. Just last year, we had World Urban Forum 12 in Egypt, where the Ministry of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development, because that's our parent ministry, they invited us, and I was able to represent the institute at that particular fora. And what came out from that fora is that, there are a lot of squatter settlements in Lusaka, and the government, the current government wants to address some of those challenges, and they've established a steering committee that is looking at that, and one of the areas that they have identified is Chibolia as a starting place where they want to do a squatter upgrade. Like this unplanned settlement has to be upgraded as a pilot project. And because of those engagements, Zambia Institute of Valuation Surveyors is part of one of the subcommittees that is looking at that, working with other professional bodies like the Zambia Institute of Architects, the Zambia Institute of Planners, the Engineering Institution of Zambia, and other relevant bodies within the country.
Obviously, Chibolia has been a project for, a governmental project for so many years, and obviously attempts to either relocate or just enhance the livelihood there has been tried. But obviously, even the people there sometimes are the ones that do seem to be a bit comfortable with how they live and how everything is done. What are some of the measures that your institution and obviously other stakeholders are putting in place to make sure that there is a smooth work that going into that area, Chibolia, everything is explained to them, well written down, and they do understand it. Look, this is what we want to do. I remember there's in South Africa, that should be Alexandra. Government came up with an idea like that. And just next to Alexandra, there was land, and government built some nice, smaller houses. And they approached the people of Alexandra to say, okay, now we want to move you to this place so that this land, that we can develop it, and those that want to come back can come back. But some moved a few months, but still went back to those, shackles. So what are some of the moves or measures that you put in place to enhance or to make sure that there's a smooth transition, or this idea is actually implemented? Because it is definitely a good idea.
Okay, thank you so much. Like I said, there's an interplay of professions in undertaking that work. We have the architects. I think the architects are the ones that come up with designs, modeling and all that. Then the planners have to plan for that particular area. Now, I'll talk from our perspective as valuation surveyors. Before any real estate development is put up, valuation surveyors, they conduct what we call market feasibility studies in order to determine whether it's legally permissible to put up a structure in that particular area, yes. How financial feasible is that particular real estate development, and what are other issues or risk factors that have to be looked at. Even the returns in terms of if you put it on rent, how much are you going to realize, or are you going to sell those properties? So you find that we play a very critical role as valuation surveyors in such projects by undertaking market feasibility studies before even the actual project is being undertaken. And then apart from that, when the actual project is being undertaken, because it involves some demolition of some kind,
yes.
and any demolition that happens, of course, the property owners have to be, the affected property owners have to be compensated, and that compensation cannot just be dreamt, like you just wake up and say, okay, we're going to pay you 300,000. There has to be a professional who has to assess the value of that particular property to be demolished.
Yes.
And those professionals, it's ourselves as valuation surveyors. So we play a very critical role in every sphere of the built environment, whichever side you are going to look at it. We always come in and be able to provide that professional service that has to do with compensation.
You have rightly put it, sir, and I must say this is a very important institution, and thankfully it is here, and I know that the surveyors must be excited about this. But obviously we want to know what have you prepared in making sure that now surveyors are visible, the visibility is there, especially now we are living in a digital world. What is at present in terms of preparation in making the surveyors visible and just letting the public and every other person know just how important a surveyor is?
Okay, thank you so much. Like stated, when you look at our institute, it was established last year, that is in February. Immediately the new council was inaugurated into office. But in terms of valuation surveying has been around in Zambia, I think even before independence.
We can remember, yes.
Yeah, so because of that, I think most of the institutions, they understand, they know. But sometimes it's like the misnomer or the misunderstanding between a surveyor, like I already articulated, who is a land surveyor, who is a quantity surveyor, and I've talked so much about ourselves as valuation surveyors and what we are able to do. So because of what we're able to do,
yes,
and we were ushered into office, we came up with a vision for the institute, which is basically to become a top-notch professional body offering valuation surveying services that creates value for society. And then our mission statement, of course, emanates from one of our functions, which is to register and regulate the practice of valuation surveyors. And I already articulated in terms of who a valuation surveyor is, in terms of composition. We have valuers, property managers, we've got facilities managers, as well as those working in land administration or providing land administration services. Now, in terms of visibility, that's just one of the areas that we had to handle. Now, in terms of visibility, we are, of course, very present on most of the social media platforms. If you go to almost every social media platform we are found there. If you go to Facebook, we are very active on Facebook. We are very active on LinkedIn. Mostly what you post on Facebook is found on LinkedIn. It's also found on Twitter. We also have a YouTube channel, and we also have our own website. I think on the social part, in terms of social networking, I think that's a part that we have done. But apart from that, we also host various meetings in terms of conferences as well as AGMs. Just last year, we hosted the African Real Estate Society, the 23rd African Real Estate Society Conference, which brought real estate professionals from all over Africa and all over the world. And we held it in Zambia, and the attendance was remarkable. So that's just one of the areas that we use. And apart from that, we are also looking forward to participating in most of the local events to do with maybe if there's a trade fair, if there's a show, we show ourselves in those meetings, and also be able to promote a lot of programs on radio as well as TV. So you will see us a lot this year appearing on most of the TV and radio programs promoting our institute, so that people are able to know who we are and what we're able to do. Because if people don't know, you'll find that I think there'll be a lot of
even just misconception, regarding and your institution,
and breach in terms of the act that governs the valuation surveyors in Zambia.
So obviously we've mentioned we hear surveyors, in obviously when we link to what ZIVS is able to do, but I would want to know. What would be the expectation, apart from protecting the surveyors and also just, looting for them? What is the citizen out there? What's their expectation when they hear about ZIVS? Do you strike a balance as, while you protect the surveyors, but you also have the property owners and every other citizen out there in mind? Because obviously we have other institutions that stand for people in different fields, but then it becomes like more of a one-sided a field where they're just protecting their members and really don't have. For instance, if one of your members, goes against goes contrary to what is stipulated according to the law, how do you come in to make sure that the citizen, the property owner, is protected as much as you protect the surveyor?
Okay, thank you so much. Like I already stated, it's a double barrel duty that we have. We have to promote the aspirations of our members. Apart from that, we also have to protect the interests of the general public. Yes. Now, in protecting the interests of the general public, that is from our members, meaning our members should not take advantage of the general public. Yes. So what we have done as an institute is to ensure that we subscribe to international best practices. For your own record, we as an institute, last year immediately we came into office. We affiliated ourselves with the International Valuation Standards Council. Now, International Valuation Standards Council is a council that prepares valuation standards all over the world for most of the developing countries and other developed nations. They adopt their valuation standards and use them in their valuations. Even us, we have affiliated ourselves with that institute. And basically, the main purpose is to ensure that we get or we adopt their standards that they use and be able to customize them to suit our local standards. Because it's not everything that is put in their international valuation standards that may move in tandem with what we have currently in our country. And in doing that, we have established an ethics and conduct committee that usually conducts assessments and inspections on our members to ensure that they keep a check and balance on our members, that they are actually subscribing to some of these international standards and they meet the criteria for which their evaluations, they meet the standards that the general public will be able to appreciate. And then apart from that, in terms of protecting the interests of the public, I'll mention, this has come earlier, but let me mention it. When it comes to the payment of property rates in Zambia, the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development appoints a valuation surveyor who is a public valuation surveyor from the government, the Department of Valuation and Property Management, to undertake valuation or prepare valuation rolls. So when these valuation rolls are prepared, they are prepared for the interests of the local authorities and for the interests of the government. But again, the government has a responsibility to take care of its citizenry. So in that case, we come in as an institute to ensure, as we are regulating the practice, the act that governs rating, which is Rating Act of 2018, there's a section there, if you read section 17G, it provides that if someone is not happy or satisfied with the value that a government or an appointed valuation surveyor who has prepared or undertaken the valuation role, they can engage any of our members. They can come to the institute or engage any of our members to be able to represent them, like the way it's done by the lawyers. You know, someone has committed felony, has committed an offense, you engage a lawyer to represent or to stand on your behalf. So even us as an institute, we have got that leverage that our members can be able to represent the members of the general public, especially when they object on value. Because when you are talking about value, valuation is a technical subject. Valuation is an art and a science. So it involves the art, the years of experience that you have had, you develop that skill over time. And it's a science because it's based on empirical evidence that you gather from the market comparable sales that have happened. So only a valuation surveyor would be able to articulate and be able to assess value. And the law provides for that it's only a valuation surveyor who is able to ascertain the value of a property, not any other person. In terms of valuation, it's only a valuation surveyor who should be able to ascertain the value of a property, not any other person.
So obviously, based off that, what is the criteria of accepting one or a surveyors or valuer to be a member of that? Someone just joining your institution now, do you trace back to their conduct, how they've been performing, how they've been relating with the public out there? Do you have those systems that are able to guide you as and when you are accepting surveyors to and those fit to join your institution as members?
So we have a system of registering members in terms of those that want to become valuation surveyors. Now, there's a difference between being a member of the Zambia Institute of Valuation Surveyors as well as being able to practice valuation.
I see. Could you just
the practice is reserved for people that have undergone an assessment of professional competence, which we call APC within our profession, and it's done over a period of time. Others have attained it within 2 years, and they go through a rigorous training, and they acquire necessary skills and competence to be able to value property, not just value in property, and to be able to sign on a valuation report. You remember these valuation reports that we are producing, these are legal documents.
Definitely.
And if there is any appeal by anyone, you can even be called to appear before the courts of law. So that requisite knowledge that they go through, the competence, it gives them that leverage that they can stand before the courts of law and be able to defend the values that they have put in a particular property report that they have prepared. So that's about those who are able to practice. But for membership, the minimum qualification is a Bachelor of Science in Real Estate from either the Copperbelt University, could be outside the country. University of Cape Town offers that course, land management, or could be land economy for those who pass through Copperbelt University way back, and also other property studies. If you go to Namibia, there is a program called Property Studies. Those they can fit into becoming members.
It's not just anybody who wakes up and say, you know what, I want to be a surveyor. Not just the street real estate managers and all those people that do so, because we still actually do have some of them in the country?
No, for us, the barest minimum is what I've mentioned. It's a Bachelor of Science in real estate, land economy, land management, or property studies. Those are the people that we admit into our institute to become members. So if someone wants to do that, then they have to go through the mill. There's no way you can avoid the process. So someone has to go through the process. They have to go through the education system to acquire those necessary skills, and then practically they can be able to articulate or to work in the field of valuation surveying.
Well said, well said. Great information, I must say, that you're bringing out, Sir, Mr. Mulenga. And obviously teaches me a lot and to understand about this institution. And now we should also know that in a digital world, there's kind of speed in terms of how things are evolving. Do you have worry in terms of when we talk about AI? And because obviously most from the years back to now, we see that surveyors always and have to be on the field to survey and property and whatever it is. But in the speed evolving world, do you already have something? Are you ahead of time to make sure that when there's all these changes, you still adapt? In case one day we just say, okay, you know what, there's no need to go with tapes. There's no need to go with these instruments. There's no need to go with these tools to do evaluation and all these works that your members are doing. Are you up to speed in educating these people that the world is evolving? And if it does affect your institution, what are some of the measures you've put in place to adjust?
The advent of technology has actually brought more advantages and disadvantages. It depends on which side of the fence you are sitting on. But from a profession perspective, I think it has brought more advantages. And us as an institute now, it's to ensure that we come up with deliberate programs, training programs, master classes, where we are able to educate our members, apart from the members, and also the general public in terms of the advent of AI and how we are able to embrace it, because it's either, if you don't, you can't just be adopting. Now it's about adopt and adapt. So you have to adapt to the changing environment, just like the issue of climate change. When we're told about climate change, we're adopting means, we're trying to forbid it from happening, but it's something that you cannot, it had to come, and when it came, we just had to adapt. So even us as a profession, we are in that space where we are adopting and adapting these new technologies that are coming in place. And by embracing them, it means we have to embark on rigorous training programs for our members so that everyone is abreast with what is happening in the field of valuation surveying.
Most definitely, adopting and adapting is the key thing that obviously members of this institution are endeavoring to take. We continue discussing and dissecting this institution. So obviously talking about, because the public are the major stakeholders in whatever field that, whatever government wants to implement, whatever an institution wants to implement, you cannot ignore the public. So in terms of, just engaging the public, your institution engaging the public and just, mobilizing resources to make sure that what's within the institution is also on the ground, sensitization and anything in that line pertaining to educating the public.
Okay, yeah, like mentioned, there's so much that we do as valuation surveyors, and if you look at the mortgage market, for instance, you cannot borrow a certain threshold in terms of money from a bank without the bank asking you to pledge your property as collateral, as security.
Yes.
And that security doesn't just come. It involves someone to determine the value of that particular property. So we play a very significant role in helping reducing the risks and challenges that the banks face, because if they just lend out money on any security that they receive, they may not be receiving money for their value. So a valuer or a valuation surveyor has to be engaged to value such a property. And apart from mortgage valuations, we do valuations for various purposes. If someone wants to insure their property, for instance, it's a valuer that they are going to call upon to value that particular property in order for it to be insured. If a property has to be sold, again, they have to come to a value to be able to determine the value of that particular property for sale purposes or for even the one who wants to buy, because sometimes as a buyer you may be arguing or you think the seller wants to dupe you of your ad-end cash. So you have to engage the services of a valuation surveyor to determine the value of that particular property. For instance, someone has died and there's an issue of sharing the proceeds of the estate of the late. Under probate, valuers come in place to value such assets. And apart from that, it's now a requirement by the International Financial Reporting under International Financial Reporting Standards that most of these corporate organizations, they are supposed to prepare the valuations in terms of their books of accounts, in terms of updating on their balance sheet. There is a component of land and buildings and a component of plant and machinery. Valuers or valuation surveyors are supposed to be engaged in that work for accounting purposes. And apart from that, when you look at compensation, which I already alluded to, there is a lot of infrastructure development going on in our country, especially road construction. Along the road networks, there are some properties that could be closer to the main road, and they need to be demolished. And you can't just demolish them. The owners of the properties have to be fairly compensated according to the World Bank standards. And according to the World Bank standards, those properties are supposed to be assessed and valued. And who values them is a valuation surveyor. And apart from that, when ZRI or when you have sold a property, you are supposed to pay property transfer tax to Zambia Revenue Authority. And any property that is worth 700 and above or 750 and above, you are supposed to subject such a property to a valuation report. And who prepares a valuation report? It's a valuation surveyor. So we play a very significant role in the sphere or in our country in terms of adding value to the gross domestic product, the GDP. And apart from that, I mentioned on rating valuations. So when you talk about rating, the local authorities, for your own information, should I say above 50%? I'll be very economical with figures, but if I want, I can remove that economics and just be a little bit real in terms of how much the local authorities collect. Be
real on that, sir.
So the local authorities from the revenue that they collect from the property rates, actually that accounts for the biggest within their revenue collection base. You are talking about over 50 to 60% of the revenue collected by the local authorities comes from the property rates. And who prepares these property valuations or valuation rolls? It's a valuation surveyor. And we are also grateful to the Republican President, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, through the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. Just last week, Honorable Gary Nkombo was on TV announcing that they have declared all the 116 local authorities or councils within Zambia as rateable authorities. What that simply means is what the government has done for us as an institute, they have created jobs for our people because those additional local authorities, it means they will need evaluation survey because you cannot conduct a main evaluation role for any local authority without the involvement of one, the appointed surveyor who is appointed by the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. And you can also not conduct it if you don't have the local or within that local municipality a valuation surveyor or a valuation officer working there. So we are so grateful to the Republican President for that declaration because it has added numbers to our profession, and we know that our profession is growing.
I actually had a chat on a different episode concerning what the minister declared, and obviously one or two questions come through is how effective will this be? But obviously now, in line with your institution, have you already made a step to engage your members to fully understand what this declaration means and how to just position themselves? Because a declaration or a written down policy or law is one thing, but just how ready are the institutions, how ready are the surveyors, how ready are the people in making sure that this is surely implemented?
Thank you so much. Our members were ready like 20, 30 years ago. I'll
awesome.
give you a practical example. What has been happening over the years in terms of rating valuation is been conducted by the public valuation surveyors. When I say public, we're talking about the government. So the government is the one through the Department of Valuation and Property Management. They are the ones that have been undertaking most of these valuations. And that has been an outcry, or there's been an outcry from our members. Why don't we extend, this olive branch also to the private valuation surveyors to be able to participate in rating valuation work? And it so happened, we are so grateful again. We'll keep on applauding the president of this country for having assented to that proposal and the bill that is looking at repealing the existing rating act, where private valuation surveyors will now be brought on board to be able to conduct rating valuation as well. So that's a positive move for our profession if the private valuation surveyors are also involved, because when you look at the numbers, there are more private valuation surveyors within our country than there are the public valuation surveyors.
Most definitely, we are so expectant and looking forward that this is definitely implemented. As loudly as it came out, we also look forward to seeing it work, seeing it benefit the public out there and everyone who's just involved in this. But obviously, in my personal capacity, I've had one or two cases where I may not have the correct terminology, but there's the inflating, if I might say, where a surveyor comes to a property and the property owner advises or requests that it can be rated a bit higher. In the instance, maybe they want to get a loan from a bank, or there's a business that they want to do that requires them to give a report. Is that a crime, or what would you say about certain circumstances like that, where a valuer is asked to, either in some cases to value the property a bit higher, or in some cases, if it's a court case, maybe involving a property, to undervalue the property?
Okay, thank you so much. Like I mentioned, our main purpose is to promote the interests of our members, as well as protect the interests of the general public. Now, the general public is very diverse, or is very broad. The general public could be even financial lending institutions. It could be property owners that are selling property, or those that are buying.
Yes.
So our interests or our duty as a profession cuts across all those members that we're talking about. So in ensuring that our members do not engage in such practices, we've said we have adopted, or we have affiliated ourselves to the International Valuation Standards, and we have also established a committee called the Ethics and Compliance Committee that looks at compliance levels. So any member who is found in breach of the Act, and this is an appeal to the members of the general public, if any member of the general public has an issue with any of our members, you are free to contact us. You're free to contact our secretariat and get in touch with them. Bring such a complaint that you have, and it will be properly handled by the relevant committees that we have. From Ethics and Compliance Committee, we also have the Professional Conduct Committee that will look at any professional misconduct from any of our members. If Professional Conduct Committee deems it fit to go to the Disciplinary Committee, that issue will go to the Disciplinary Committee. So we have all these committees that have been set up to address all those anomalies or issues that the members of the general public could be raising.
Most definitely. You do sound like you are a ready and well-packaged institution, and just obviously do hope that everything just goes smooth. but with any institution, there are either foreseen challenges or unforeseen challenges. What's your place in terms of unforeseen challenges with regards to your institution?
In terms of, and I'll talk about one of the biggest challenges that we are facing currently. It's the issue of, I would call, for lack of a better word, I'll call it fly-by-nights. There are these multi-corporations or multinational companies that have been flying valuers from outside the country to come and value property, their assets in Zambia, because they are multinationals. But that is illegal, and it's against the tenets of the laws that govern our land, especially in the field of valuation surveying. So it's our appeal to such institutions that they should desist from such a practice, because it's illegal. And if they are found practicing that, we will be left with no option as an institute but to institute legal proceedings and be able to prosecute such erring institutions. So it's our appeal not only to the multinational companies but also the local companies that are flouting the provisions of the Zambia Institute of Valuation Surveyors Act number 9 of 2023 of the laws of Zambia.
That's a great one, especially that you have highlighted, because from what I hear, we seem to have capable people, capable members of your institution that can actually do most of these jobs. But to bring in people from outside, that's also just robbing, even the nation of what revenue it could, because these companies are also, affiliated. They pay tax. But if you bring in other people, it means you have robbed the Zambians of what the benefit could be. That must be emphasized. And now I want to just, from looking at how much work you have done as a president, which I must actually commend that from the knowledge and the wisdom you have poured out, you actually fit to be Mr. President.
No, thank you so much for that compliment.
So, from the time that you started your journey, how's your journey been in this path, in this career path, and different institutions that you have worked with? How different is this institution that you are the president, sitting as the president on, and just how much do you for lack of better term, just wish to push, that more people are aware and more institutions, including the government, because I think the government must, be well educated and made known to say this institution is there and the importance is this. So as the president, looking at the track of work you have done, what's the emphasis you would put, especially with relation to the local government, and just how they must give you an ear and they must create a platform where you dialogue and achieve the intended goal?
Okay, thank you so much. Like mentioned, we are already in the process, and we've been in the process of engaging with the relevant authorities. We have 3 major ministries, but I'll point out that we haven't really made so much progress with one of the ministries, because the Ministry of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development is our parent ministry. So that's the one that pushed for this law or this act of parliament to be passed. And then we also interact a lot with the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development because of the valuation officers that work for the local authorities around the country. But we also have our members that work for Ministry of Lands. Ministry of Lands is one of the key ministries within our country, and our members are there. They work there as lands officers. Others work there as estates and valuation officers. I think that's a ministry where we need to make our inroads as an institute, so that whatever programs they are initiating, we are also put in the loop. But for these other 2 ministries, I think we have a lot of interactions at different levels, and we look forward to more interactions, apart from the government, but also other corporate organizations. We need to, of course, partner with them. Engage them. And we've engaged quite a lot of them. When I talked about
the fly-by-nights, of course, we have engaged the Lusaka Stock Exchange because some of these fly-by-nights, they represent institutional companies.
In a more layman or street language, what would you term those fly-by-nights?
Yeah, it's people that, I'll just say, they may be registered in other countries to practice valuation, but they are not supposed to come and practice valuation in our country unless they pass through our institute. If they don't pass through our institute, they are fly-by-nights.
Yes, must have okay.
Yeah, so they have to pass through our institute. If they are to come here, not where they just come, they are flown into the country by a multinational company and then they do their work that they're supposed to do. That is legal according to the act that we're talking about.
Most definitely, this has been the Valuer podcast and a lot of things that have been highlighted. But obviously, before I close, I will just allow Mr. Christopher to, if you have any emphasis on any information that you want the public, the local government, and any stakeholder to be aware with in just a minute or so.
Okay, thank you so much. I think much has been said, but I still want to re-emphasize on what valuation surveying practice is all about. So valuation surveying is a practice of valuation. I already stated valuation is valuing properties or land and buildings, plant and machinery, assets, as well as asset quality. And apart from that, we also engage ourselves in property management, facilities management, as well as parts, and I'm emphasizing part of the land administration services. Like I mentioned, we've got our members that are working for Ministry of Lands, and they perform those land administration services. So it's very, very important that the members of the general public are made aware of what we do as an institute. And we've seen some people that have been advertising property management if you pass through the streets of Lusaka. So it's my humble appeal to those institutions that if you are not affiliated to the Zambia Institute of Valuation Surveyors, what you are doing is illegal, and very soon the long arm of the law will be able to visit you. We've seen examples, and we don't want your company to be one of the examples coming out in the headlines that such and such directors of such an institution have been arrested and been taken to task by the Zambia Institute of Valuation Surveyors. In a nutshell, I think that's what I would say.
That's very, very well highlighted, and obviously I pick the key element is that those that are not registered are, practicing illegally. So someone that wants to no longer do the illegal practice would want to know where is this institution? Is there a physical address? Is there a platform where they can access you, find you, engage you, and just make sure that they are now able to trade legally and be able to practice. Where are you found? Where can they find your institution?
Our institute has got a fully fledged secretariat, which is headed by the registrar. And our office is found on Provident House along Cairo Road. It's on the 3rd floor. And Provident House is just opposite Indo Bank in town, or opposite Indeco, the famous Indeco House. So that's where we are found in terms of the physical address. Then our email address is, they can get us at registrar at zivs.org.za, or alternatively, they can contact the president at zivs.org.za. That's our email address.
Thank you so much, Sam, for coming through to this podcast, putting away all your busy schedule, but just to come and answer a few questions that the public, the members, and everyone else would want answered. And we could be calling on you just on another episode, because I see that there's still more and more information that we need to get from you. So time to time, we'll definitely call on your office and just engage you and just get to understand. Because this platform is mainly just set to inform people and educate people about what surveyor, who are the surveyors, what's this institution, who does what, and just understanding so that together we can become a well-organized nation, and everything must be done according to how the policy and the laws of this nation guides. Thank you so much. So this has been the Valuer Podcast, and my host was Mr. Christopher Mulenga, master with a rich CV. Oh my God. Who's the president of the Zambia Institute of Valuation and Surveyors. This has been Demiano Chilekwa, aka Mwanamfumu, as your host. Until the next podcast, see you.